This footage was emailed over to me by a viewer out of Anaheim, California. Shocked by what he saw, obviously, while he was pumping some gas, he took out his phone and started recording. So he sent me an email, and he said that while he was putting gas in his car, he noticed this black, triangular-shaped object floating in the air, eerily still and eerily quiet. Now, this actually happened last year, but it's never been featured anywhere else, and once he discovered my channel, the first thing he did was to send it over and indicate to me, first and foremost, that this was not a kite, this wasn't a balloon, a bird, and that he was sure of. It made no sound and was very steady. The area where it was flying over was a water reservoir called Raymond Retarding Basin. And so he says he finished pumping gas, he got into his car and grabbed his iPhone and began recording. And it looked like nothing he had seen before, except in other videos that he had found online, which also featured this same typical black TR3B shaped object. And we'll talk more about the TR3B here in just a second, but he finished off his email by saying that he drove about a block away, and when he looked back to try to find the object again, it was no longer in sight. This looks remarkably like the standard TR3B, or black manta. Now, if you're new to the research, and if you've heard me mention the word TR3B before and maybe you don't know what it is, well, in a nutshell, the TR3B, or TR3 Black Manta, is the name of a highly secret government surveillance aircraft that is said to have been developed under a very secret black project. And the only evidence that we have that this thing exists is through the testimony and the sightings of people from all over the world who have seen this very mysterious craft, which has also been seen to exhibit anti-gravity capabilities, with several reported sightings over Antelope Valley, an area in the desert in Southern California, which is very close to several known military research and testing areas such as Edwards Air Force Base and the United States Air Force Plant 42. The TR3B is your standard black triangular shape, alright? It has no real wings. It is said to have a white light on each corner and a red light in the center. This is on the bottom of the craft. And it's long since been suggested that this highly secretive aircraft and the anti-gravity technology that encompasses it was actually engineered through the back engineering of alien craft that had been recovered at one time or another. The Roswell crash may come to mind. And so the idea is that the government has used this technology to create their own craft, and that many of the UFO sightings we see today may in fact be of our own and not of an alien nature. Although, if they are our military's craft, they can still be of an alien nature because of the back-engineered tech inside them. So again, I want to thank Hector for an amazing piece of video here. Let me know what you guys think. Anyone from Anaheim, California, seen something similar? Don't hesitate to post it down in the comments or send me an email. So next, I want to show you guys some more footage, this time from our moon. Now lately, we've been talking about some of the strange things on the moon, whether it be the structures, the towers, the strange smokestacks that have been captured sitting inside of craters, and recently that were found flying above the moon. And we have found in the past what appear to be ruins of some sort. So the idea is, and what the evidence points to, is that at one point in time, possibly millions of years ago, the moon was covered in these ancient bases found in specific places. And so there's a new video out by a friend of mine who runs the channel StreetCap1, who has identified what, in his opinion, could be some sort of crashed craft of some sort. And he found this while going through some high-resolution images of the moon, which just show this sort of circular object partially buried into the lunar soil with a trail behind it. So I'll go ahead and just play you an excerpt from this video here.
But what's a good convincer on this are the marks leading up to this object and the sort of drag marks through here. It looks like a saucer to me. You may think different. Anyway, I'll add it into the video. Very strange if it's a rock. The other thing is it's sitting on its own, away in the middle of a very barren piece of land, as you can see here. You can see it better now. See these marks here? Leading right up to this. It's like it's been gliding along and or it's come down, it's had to crash land or something. That's what it looks like to me anyway. You might think different.
An interesting find by StreetCap 1. The jury is out on this one, and as pointed out by StreetCap, we have this circular object. We have what appears to be a trail behind it. Now, could this be something? Yes, indeed it could. Could this be a rock or an asteroid that skidded across the surface? Could be that as well. But I think what StreetCap was pointing out was the almost perfect cylinder shape of this thing and some of the surface structures to it. And I know many of you have asked in the past if there were beings out there that had these advanced craft and that were so much more advanced than us, why do they seem to be crashing their ships all the time? And this goes to whether we're talking about Roswell or any of the other alleged crashes on Earth, or some of the things that we found on the moon, on Mars, and other bodies in the system that would appear to show partially buried wreckage or ruins. And the simple answer is that just because you have an advanced race with advanced technology does not mean that at some point in the distant past that there wasn't some sort of war or cataclysm or something that would have caused these ruins to become ruins, that would have caused these crashes or this unknown debris to be littered across the moon or Mars or Earth. And the theory has been put forth by some people that there indeed was some sort of ancient war, hundreds of thousands, millions of years ago. And it happened very close to us. And they point out the fact that this is why the moon is so heavily bombarded with craters, and that many of these aren't craters at all, but instead are the remnants of nuclear explosions being detonated on the surface during this ancient conflict. And the same thing has been said for the planet Mars, which also features scars along its surface as if it had been hit by some sort of direct energy weapon. And there's videos on YouTube you can find that talk about this. But when you look at some of the bodies in the solar system, some of the scarring or the cratering found on them truly does correlate more with some sort of nuclear detonation than it would with asteroids skipping across the surface. And so maybe one day in the future we'll go in depth about this, but there are some highly in-depth videos that already talk about this on YouTube, and the one about Mars specifically, I will find it and I'll put the link down in the video description. It's mind-boggling, so you guys got to check that out. Now, while we're on the topic of the moon, I have another piece of what looks like telescopic footage or high-powered lens footage of someone who was zoomed in on the moon and caught something very slowly creeping by. So check this out. Alright, so I don't have too much information, but we do have a very mysterious piece of footage. Seems to be zoomed in on the moon, possibly with a high-powered DSLR camera with a very expensive lens on it, or a telescope, one of the two. And as you guys can see, we have sort of a circular object seen floating by, going at a very straight pace, moving in a straight line. And as I analyzed this, one thing became clear, and that is the fact that this does not look like a plane at all. Does not look like a plane, and at the closeness that he zoomed in at the moon, I would have to think that this is either something very, very large that's close to the moon, or it's something closer to the Earth. Something that's possibly orbiting the Earth, maybe a satellite, something like that. But again, if this was a satellite, I still wouldn't expect it to be this large. And again, we can see how this thing is almost a perfect circle. It's kind of oval shaped. So this very well may be something very large moving by somewhere out there in space, at some point in between the Earth and the moon. And, I just love these types of videos. Because it just shows there's a lot of unknown things out there in space that every now and again you'll see floating by. And if you're really lucky, you'll see it making these sharp left and right hand turns, disappearing and reappearing, and all of this other really cool stuff. So thanks to the person who sent this over, whatever your name is. If you have any more footage like this, don't hesitate to email me back. So before we end today's video, I want to give you guys an update to the video I posted yesterday when I featured a couple of different UFO sightings, and one of the sightings was what you're seeing here, where a viewer in a rural area of Puerto Rico had been driving along and captured this very strange, almost fish-shaped like object far in the distance. And we didn't know what it was. It didn't seem to have any sort of basket on it like you would see with a hot air balloon. And so we posted it up, and with the help of some of you guys, I think we actually may have identified this. And what I found out is that in Puerto Rico, not exactly in this area, but seen in other areas, is something called the Tethered Aerostat Radar System. And it's basically this flying blimp type vehicle that actually looks for drug operations from the sky. And it also is used to detect aircraft that are flying at low altitudes. As you're seeing with this much bigger close-up image here, we have the same type of fins in the background, and I think we have a dead ringer for what we're seeing in this UFO footage. So I would say that it's case closed.